Shalom, my friends from the heartland of Israel. My name is Ishai Harel, and today we are learning about Sukkot. Sukkot has a lot of different and beautiful significance in itself, in this Chag, in this feast, this holiday, and together we are going to find out what and why and how, etc. We just have had Yom Kippur, on which we intensified that day to a climax our tefillot, our slichot, that Hashem will be merciful on us and will write us in the book of life, in the book of blessing. And we know that on Rosh Hashanah, our destiny for the coming year will be determined. And we also know that the doors of the heavenly courtroom are closing in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And until they are fully closed on Yom Kippur, we still have the possibility to ask Hashem to change a possible negative verdict into a positive verdict. And we should not only pray for that, but also show to Hashem we're serious by doing extra mitzvot and study extra Torah and doing things with an extra intention. Directly after Yom Kippur, Motzei Yom Kippur, we start with building of our sukkah, our hut, our booth, our tabernacle, our tent. We have 5 days until Sukkot to do that. According to the Halachot, we build our sukkah. And we also purchase for ourselves a lulav and an ertroch and the other branches of trees. We will look into that. And we fulfill the mitzvah by using those specific 4 items of different trees and by living for a week in a sukkah. So what is it all about? Well, today we're going to learn about it, and I've prepared something and used the commentaries of Rav Chaim Halevi Donin, and I used also the notes in Likutei Shichot, written by the Lubavitcher Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, a very wise and capable and wonderful rabbi. He was of Chabad. Okay, so Sukkot means tabernacles, booths, huts, tents, temporary huts. And it refers to our temporary dwellings or tents we had in the desert, in the Bemidbar. For 40 years we traveled through the desert from Egypt to Canaan, to Israel, the promised land. And in those 40 years we lived in booths and in Sukkot. And Hashem says in Vayikra 23, I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. So this holiday commemorates that period of time in which we were living in booths. And not only that, it also commemorates the 40 years of blessings and protection of Hashem, and how Hashem gave us the opportunity to learn Torah in those 40 years and also to learn it to our children. It's, however, not only an historic commemoration, it's also the spiritual motive that's underlying this memory. namely the trust in the divine protection of Hashem. Bitachon. He is our protection, and He protected us. In the day, He protected us with a cloud against the heat of the sun. In the night, He protected us against the cold of the night with, and then He replaced the cloud with a fire column, which warmed all Am Israel. He gave us food. He gave us every day. He gave us manna. And the man that He gave us, He gave it on Yom Shishi, on the 6th day. He gave a double portion also for Shabbat. And also when there was a Chag, for example, the first day of Sukkot, we are not allowed to work. It's like a Shabbat. So the day before Sukkot, Hashem also gave us a double portion. And also with the other Chagim and special days in where Hashem says in the Torah that we cannot work on the day and we have to celebrate the specific Chag, all those days that were considered as a Shabbat, also the day before Hashem gave us double. Our clothes did not turn old. We wore the same clothes for 40 years, and at the end of the 40 years, they were still as new. He gave us water every day, and we learn that Moshe Rabbeinu had to strike a rock, and then the rock gave water, and the rock traveled with us all those 40 years. And all those 40 years, Hashem miraculously provided us with water, literally living water, because it was the word of Hashem that made this water flow and drinkable. How do we physically symbolize that protection of Hashem and the trust in Hashem? What is our bitachon nowadays when we build our sukkah? Well, the roof we make. We make a roof, but we don't make it so strong that we trust in the roof itself. We still have to, it has to symbolize still something temporarily, but the roof is like the protection of Hashem, His hand over us. Also, the spiritual motive of Sukkot, we can also see that we celebrate this in the time of harvest. And what do we do when we harvest? Hashem tells us in Devarim 16 that when we gather the produce of your age and your place, then we should bring it to the Beit HaMikdash to make a Bikurim offering. And a Maaser offering and a Teruma offering, all those different kind of offerings. But to start with the first part of the offering, bringing it to the house of Hashem. And what happens in those joyful celebrations of bringing the first fruits of our harvest towards the Beit HaMikdash, to Hashem? We dance, we sing, we enjoy. We are not only spiritually but physically busy with the Chag, with the holiday, with the mitzvah to bring Bikurim to Hashem. And that's how we celebrate. That's how we keep Torah. We don't just keep Torah in our head or in our heart. No, we keep Torah by doing it, by living it day in, day out. And also now we just don't commemorate Sukkot, but we physically build a sukkah for every family in his next to his house to perform the mitzvah and to enjoy the mitzvah and to experience literally the protection of Hashem. So Hashem said, we have to live in the sukkah for 7 days. Hashem taught Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu teach the children of Israel how and what. And we can learn from the Torah, Baal Peh, and also from the written Torah, and from the first one is the oral Torah. We can learn all about the different kind of halachot, which has to do with Sukkot. Hashem said to Moshe, speak to the Bnei Yisrael and tell them on the 15th of this 7th month will be the Sumlan Feast of Tabernacles, Chag HaSukkot, for Hashem for 7 days. The first day will be a day of holy gathering. You will do not any work in it. And on the 8th day, Shemini Atzaret, you will also have a holy day of gathering. It's the Feast of Congregation, Atzeret, and you will do no any work on it. Of course, in this time of Corona, we have a whole different way of coming together. We cannot come together with all the community to celebrate Sukkot, to do a tefillot together, at the end of Sukkot to dance on Simchat Torah with all our Sefarim Torah. We cannot do that, and our chief rabbis also told us not to do that. So we just can gather in small groups. For example, I gather in with some friends and neighbors from my street where I live, and like a group more or less of 30 people, 20 people, 20 men. We use 2 gardens, 2 open spaces to spread the group so that we will not be all together in a small space outside but still together. No, we spread it and we obey the regulations and we celebrate. How we can, we celebrate. And we are all busy in the street building our sukkahs. And we are all looking what is the other doing, and we're talking about it with each other, and everybody is excited. And that's what also the Chagim do. The Chagim build us as Am Israel together. It makes us stronger, not only the mitzvah itself, but like preparing for the mitzvah we do also together. And it builds a connection, a stronger connection between us. So let's say the first day will be rest, Shabbat, and the eighth day will also be a rest like Shabbat. You will take the first day, you will take branches with fruit from a beautiful tree. Which one? The fruit we take is the etrog. The etrog is a citrus fruit. It looks like a lemon. It's a little bit different in the inside, but it's definitely family from the lemon. It's a big lemon. And we want a beautiful lemon, a beautiful etrog. So where we can, we buy one. We look for it and we check them. We buy a beautiful etrog. The second one is branches of palm trees, tamarim trees. Tamarim are dates trees. Branches of leafy trees, avot, also called myrtles, and branches of the willow of streams, arve nachal. Then Hashem said, we shall rejoice before Hashem our God for 7 days. We shall celebrate before Hashem for 7 days each year. It will be a perpetual law for your generation, an eternal law forever to remember this. Not just something we do now. we will keep on doing this every time again until forever. You will live in booths for 7 days so that your descendants will know that I made the Bnei Israel live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Vayikra 23. The unique feature of Sukkot holiday is the observance of the dwelling in the sukkah. It's not just building and having those 4 branches and the fruit, but it's really living in the sukkah. So we eat in the sukkah, and we sleep in the sukkah, and we receive friends in the sukkah. We drink our coffee in the sukkah. We study Torah in the sukkah. We do for 7 days long everything in the sukkah. And that is wonderful. It makes you feel so close to Hashem. And it makes you so connected with one another, with your neighbors, with your friends. If you live in a cold climate and you build a sukkah, you cannot, and it freezes, for example, you cannot sleep or stay long in the sukkah. So at least you should have 1 meal a day in the sukkah. But let's be honest, Sukkot is not intended to be celebrated out of Israel. Sukkot originally is intended to celebrate in Israel. But because of the Galut, because of the spread after the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash, we were spread out into the Galut. All the Jews were scattered all over the world. So they started celebrating our Chagim outside of Israel, on the places where they lived. But eventually, all Israel will be back again in Eretz Israel. Again, all the streets will be filled with Sukkot. Not only half of the streets, but all the streets. When all Israelites, where all Jews live in Israel, that will be wonderful. Already now we have so many Sukkot on the street or in the gardens, but then when all Israel lives here, then it really will be full. All the streets will be full. I'm looking forward to that moment, but I'm also enjoying this moment of today. Okay, so when we have built the sukkah and we are finished, we say a blessing. We can say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kinishanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehashem hasukah, lehashef basukah. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the world, who has sanctified us with the precepts and ordered us to build and to dwell in the sukkah. And this blessing we pronounce immediately after the blessing of the bread. So when we build it, until we build it for 5 days, then when Sukkot, the Chag Sukkot starts, then after blessing of the bread, so we do our tefillah, we come back and we celebrate the meal with our family, and that's the moment before breaking the bread. We also say the bracha of the sukkah. And every time you sit in the sukkah and you eat something like bread or even like mezunot, you say this blessing. If you forget to recite the blessing at the right time, you can, anytime during the meal, you can still recite the blessing. After the meal, you don't have the possibility anymore. But during the meal, yes, you have. So a light meal, a snack, then you don't need to say the bracha. But if you eat mezunot or you eat bread, yes, you have to. If it rains or it's extreme cold and you cannot sit in the sukkah, then, or you're ill, then you cannot sit in the sukkah. You have to wait until there's a dry moment. Then you go to the sukkah, you say the bracha, you make kiddush, you eat the bread, you make hamotzi and you eat the bread, and you go inside again. So you do the minimum. But wherever and whenever you have the possibility, you do the maximum. Women are exempt from living or eating in the sukkah. They can sleep in their own beds. They can stay in their house if they want to. And why? Well, because it's a time-bound mitzvah. And all the time-bound mitzvot in the Torah are for the men to be performed. And the women are, how do you say that in English, are not obligated to do so, but they may. So they can come and eat and live and sleep in the sukkah, but if they don't want to, we still can fulfill the mitzvah as head of the family. The father and his sons, which are bar mitzvah, they all have to sleep and live and eat and be in the sukkah all day long. And it's like Am Israel. Together we fulfill all the Torah, and together we fulfill all the mitzvot concerning Sukkot. And that's why the husband can fulfill the mitzvah for his wife and for his children. The construction of the sukkah, it must have at least have 3 walls. It must be steady walls. They can be of any material, even canvas, but if it's canvas and it blows, it moves a lot, the canvas by the wind, we should fortify, according to the halacha, the walls until a height of 80 centimeters with rope or with wood. But I want to refer you to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch if you really want to know more about the halachic rules on building the sukkah. We can use 1 or 2 walls of our house as part of the sukkah. It can be small, our sukkah, just for 1 person to sit in. But of course, if you're a family, you prefer a bigger one. And the temporary part that defines the sukkah as temporary is the schach. The schach is the roof that's on top of the sukkah, which is slightly open so that we can see the stars, and it's not a permanent roof. It's a loose roof. It's not fixed. It's there, and it's temporary. You can also it can be made of the roof can be made of bamboo, but it can also better it will be made of leaves of palm trees, etc. If you can use the sticks and the branches of the 4 species we use during Sukkot, that will be the best. We decorate, of course, the sukkah on top as just within the sukkah. Well, what I said, the schach has to have enough space. It must not be wider than 4 techafim, 4 handbreadths, hand widths between the branches. But normally the branches are very close to each other, like fingers, and you can just see through the stars. A balcony, which has a balcony also above your own balcony, cannot be used as a place to build your sukkah, because at least for a part of our sukkah we have to have a direct connection to the heaven and to the stars. If we look up through our roof, we need to see the stars just straight above us. Also under a tree, if you build your sukkah under a tree, it's not a valid one. So not under a balcony, 100% balcony. If the balcony of your upper neighbor is just covering half of your sukkah, then it means that half of your sukkah is kosher and half of your sukkah is not kosher. And you can then you can be in your sukkah, but you only fulfill the mitzvah of the living and eating and sleeping in the sukkah if you are in the half of the sukkah which is not beneath the balcony of your neighbor. Of course, the sphere in the sukkah has to be a welcoming one. Baruch haba. Blessed be you who comes. Welcome in my sukkah. So you decorate it. So my wife and my children, my girls, they're all busy for days already to make beautiful decorations, and the decorations we bought to put them up in the sukkah, and really, really wonderful, beautiful holiday it will be. Sukkah it will be. So we're all involved in building the sukkah. So we talked about the 4 species: ertrog, a citrus fruit, a palm branch of the tamar, lulav. The lulav we also use to as one word to specify the 4 ones. The third one is a hadash, a myrtle branch, and the fourth one is a arava, a willow branch. And together, the etrog, lulav, hadash, and arava. So we say also lulav. So while the lulav, the hadash, and the arava are tied together as a unit, the etrog is separated. And well, let me just so we hold the lulav in our right hand, so the palm branches, the willow branches, and the hadash branches, and in our left hand the etrog, and we put them together and we shake and say the bracha in our morning prayers. The bracha we say is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kiddush Yadav Mitzvotav V'Tzivanu Al Netilat Lulav. Netilat Lulav is you will hear the same word as Netilat Yadayim. We usually translate as wash our hands, but Netilat is actually lifting up. So if you pray the bracha of Netilat Yadayim, it's like lifting up your hands. That's why we put our hands like this during the saying of the bracha. And when we lift up the lulav with the etrog in our left hand and the rest of the branches in our right hand, we lift it up. And the lifting up towards Hashem, that's the movement which we call Netilat Lulav. Also, the first day of Sukkot, of course, when we inaugurate, oh, it's a difficult word, our sukkah, the first time that we sit officially in our sukkah, we say Shechianu, because we always thank Hashem if we have a first car, new clothes, new things, and now we have a new sukkah every year again. So we say the Shechianu over the mitzvah and over the sukkah. During the special part of the holiday service, known as Hoshanot, all the people in the Beit Knesset will participate in a procession around the bima with a lulav and an etrog. We do every day, and we make several circles around the bima, around Seferim Torah. This year it will be different because we're celebrating not in the Beit Knesset, but in small groups. And you will have to find a way to do that. And I wish you a lot of creativity in thinking it out how you will do it. And on Hoshana Rabbah, we do 7 circles. That's the 7th day of Sukkot. And the 8th day, there's also a day of holy gathering. we don't eat and live and sleep in the Sukkah anymore. And the 8th day is also the day of Simchat Torah. And then we celebrate that Hashem gave us the Torah. On Shabbat, this year Sukkot will start on Shabbat. We don't bring our lulavim and our etrogim to the Beit Knesset or to the place where you're praying. We leave it at home. There's a whole kind of halachot why. It has to do with when you are not living in a place where there's an eruv, you are not allowed to carry things from a private domain to a public domain. So you're not allowed to bring with you the lulav. So that's why on Shabbat we do not wave and bring the lulav and the etrog to the Beit Knesset. Let's see how much time. Okay, I forgot to put a timer. So then we come to the final part of Sukkot. Is we have the 4 species, the 4 branches of fruit of the branches of the lulav, and we hold them together. And there is a specific meaning of unity in bringing the etrog and the 3 other branches together and wave them as a unity before Hashem. The Midrash explains that the mitzvah of the lulav and the etrog symbolizes the intrinsic unity of all the Jewish people. Well, you can imagine we're not the same as Jewish people. We are all different kind of people, and we all are on a different moment in our own lives. And still together we are Am Israel. And the lulav and the etrog together, those 4 species signify the unity of Am Israel. So the 4 species, let's see what they mean. The etrog has both a pleasant taste and a pleasant fragrance. You taste it, you smell it. In a few minutes we compare it to which people it is compared, but first let's look at the fruit itself. An etrog smells good and tastes good. The actual lulav itself, from the date palm tree, the tamarim, it smells good, but its fragrance, its taste is not there. There's no taste. So the fruit of the tree, the tamar, the date of the lulav, the fruit has good taste but no smell. The myrtle has a pleasant smell but no taste. And the date has a pleasant taste but no smell. And the willow neither has smell, a fragrance, or neither has taste. So what is taste and what is smell? Well, taste symbolizes Torah study. Because understanding Torah gives us concrete pleasure similar to the sensation of experiencing a delicious flavor. Smell symbolizes the fulfillment of mitzvot. So Torah study is something we can taste, the taste, the flavor we can taste, and the smell symbolizes fulfilling the mitzvot which we study in the Torah. Because the quality which usually motivates us to fulfill the mitzvot is an unquestioning acceptance of the yoke of heaven. So Torah study is in much the same way that smelling something is less. It gives you smelling gives you a pleasure, but if you can taste it also, it gives you double pleasure. But then you can smell and taste it, it gives you the ultimate pleasure. Mm, so, who are the four different people that are meant by those four species? The Ertrok represents a person who studies Torah and fulfills the mitzvot. He tastes good and he smells good. The Lulav represents one who studies Torah but does not perform the mitzvot. So you taste good, but you don't smell good. The myrtle represents the one that fulfills the mitzvot, but he does not study Torah. So he smells good, but he doesn't taste good. And the willow represents a Jew who neither studies Torah nor performs the mitzvot. He has no taste and no smell. But what do? We are Am Israel. We are not just a religion with a bunch of individuals living together in this beautiful Eretz Israel. No. A Jew is an individual, but he is at the same time, he is an individual, but as a part of Am Israel. A Jew is never an individual on his own. He always is a part of the bigger Am Israel. And with all the diversity of people in Am Israel, we have so the one that performs that studies Torah and performs mitzvot, and the one that studies Torah and does not do mitzvot, and the one that does mitzvot but does not study Torah, and the one that do not study Torah and does not do mitzvot, they come together on Sukkot. And only together we are Am Israel. If you are alone, if you're just by yourself studying Torah, not doing mitzvot, you don't have a connection with the rest of Am Israel, you're like an individual on yourself. It doesn't mean anything. Or if you study Torah and you're doing the mitzvot, but you're not in connection with Am Israel, that's really not what it is about. In whatever situation you are in your life, in whatever period of time you are in your life, you're always part of Am Israel. And on Sukkot we say, together we are Am Israel. And then we can influence each other. The one that does mitzvot can influence the one that reads Torah, studies Torah, but does not do Torah, and vice versa. We can influence each other. The one that does not learn Torah and does not study mitzvot maybe has something to tell that we want to hear. And the one that studies Torah and does mitzvot maybe, no, not maybe, but he can influence the one that does not do anything. Together we are Am Israel, and together we perform the mitzvah of Sukkot and of waving the lulav. So let me read here. Fulfillment depends on one's connection with his fellow man. So no matter how much we develop ourselves as individuals, we cannot reach our true potential without the help of others. The unity of Am Israel as a whole is an indispensable ingredient in the growth and process of every individual. And the concept of unity is so central in this mitzvah of Sukkot and of waving the lulav, that it is reflected not only in the requirement of putting and taking those four species together, but it's also in the characteristics of the individual components of the mitzvah. And our sages teach us, for example, that we can only wave the lulav, let's say the actual palm branch, the one of the four. You cannot wave it on your own, on itself. You cannot wave the willow on itself or wave the etrog on itself. You have to put those four together, and only then we can wave. And that's Am Israel. Only together we can seek the attention of Hashem. We can praise Hashem. We can ask Hashem. We can bless Hashem. We can learn from Hashem together as Am Yisrael, as unity. There's also, you cannot also not say that one of the four is higher, like the lulav is the highest one of the four, literally, but let's say also of the etrog, he has good smell and good taste, so he is spiritually seen the highest, but in itself, he cannot fulfill the mitzvah. In itself, he is not a higher person or a better Jew, or no, we are all in the moment of our lives where we are, and we are all on our way to become a better Jew. And we all get our time from Hashem to figure it out. But on Sukkot we say, together we are Am Israel. I'm not better than you, and you are not worse than I. No, we're the same. Only together we can perform the mitzvah. The sages say the following: we must learn from the etrog and not merely tolerate people of all kinds, including those with characters and personalities very different from our own, but actually grow through contact with their divergent perspectives. The one that doesn't smell and doesn't taste still has an opinion and a way of looking at life. We should listen to him and learn from him. Who is wise, say our sages? One who learns from every man. Think about it. The one that is capable of learning from every man, that's the one who is wise. So Sukkot teaches us that even though we think or we look at ourselves as individuals, we need to be in unity to fulfill Torah. And we are a unity. We are Bnei Israel. We cannot change it, and we should honor it every day of the year, but especially on Sukkot, and realize that we are a unified people before Hashem. Simchat Torah does that extra pace, because in Simchat Torah we celebrate and we celebrate, and in that celebration actually all our individual identities go to the background, and we really celebrate together, have been given the Torah by Hashem through the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu. And Bezrat Hashem, next year we will all be able to meet each other in Israel or in Yerushalayim. Next year in Yerushalayim, that would be wonderful if we could all celebrate Sukkot in Yerushalayim. Well, thank you for listening today, for learning together. There's a lot more to learn. If you want to know a lot about the Halachot of Sukkot, You can learn from Kitzur Shulchan Aruch or from the Shulchan Aruch. Of course, you can look it up on the internet. There are a lot of great websites that offer concrete and easy to understand instructions how to perform the mitzvot of Sukkot. If you want to learn more about the significance and the deeper insights of Sukkot, also there are a lot of good books about it. Rav Kook has very beautiful insights on Sukkot, but also the Rav Schneerson, he has very beautiful Hasidic insights on Sukkot. And there are a lot of other rabbis and books and study material you can use to dive into this, and especially on Sukkot, it's a mitzvah to learn Torah, to learn. And if we say learn Torah, it's not just only the 5 books of the Torah, but learning Torah, we mean all the ratio of Torah, the written Torah, the oral Torah, the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Talmud, and all the other things that Hashem gave us, we should learn in the Sukkah, if possible, together with others. But for now, have a good night. Have a good and pleasant and joyful Sukkot. Chag Sukkot Sameach. And I hope we will meet next week again. We continue learning on these beautiful themes. And we're heading next week towards the end of the next week. We are in the middle of Sukkot, so I will be recording a video in the Sukkah, and we will talk then also about the 8th day of Sukkot and about Simchat Torah. But for now, Leitraot, Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy the Chag of Sukkot and enjoy the company of others, especially if possible. Maintain, of course, distance and follow the guidelines of your government. But let's try to bring Sukkot towards our hearts and learn from it only as a unity. Am Israel functions and will be strong. Bye-bye. Until next time.